Good evening from Kigali, Rwanda. My name is Robert Ganzamore, and I am the Conservation Agriculture Lead at ShareScreen Africa. I am very, very happy to be your host this evening. Now, welcome to Cultivate Africa, your virtual talk series designed to create a vibrant Pan-African community for everyone passionate about agriculture. Our core mission is to bring together farmers, agronomists, researchers, and students, and anyone involved in agriculture to share their knowledge, discuss pressing challenges, and explore some of the innovative opportunities that are shaping our continent's soil-friendly farming practices. We are truly happy to see such a wonderful and diverse group of um, people I talked about with us tonight in our audience. Now, to kick off our session tonight, we are privileged to have with us a very young but very, very distinguished expert in the field. Eric is my college classmate. I'm very proud to say that at the Rwanda Institute for Conservation Agriculture. He is now a master's candidate at the University of Mohammed VI Polytechnic in Morocco. He specialized with a postgraduate diploma in seed technology and business from Rika Seed Center. He channels this expertise into action as a youth representative at the World Food Forum and an agribusiness consultant. Now, a fun fact about Eric, he can translate any scientific agriculture term to Kinyarwanda. So it's something that we used to struggle with at college, but we used Eric's services to deal with that. Eric is perfectly positioned to guide us through tonight's critical topic. And if you can please join me to give a warm virtual welcome to our speaker for today, Mr. Eric Richevesha. Eric, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robert. I didn't know that you still remember that funny fact. So it's a real pleasure to be with you all who are joining us tonight. We are going to go together, not to like, I'm not an expert to explain everything, but we are going to work together to see how we can shape agriculture projects into a sustainable long-term solution to the problems we are addressing by mainly focusing on the community engagement. Thank you so much once again. So the topic of tonight or today, depending on where you are coming from, it's sustainable conservation, agriculture projects, and community engagement. So I would start with a real story happened during 2015 and before. Like the project in 2013 started where the IFAD and USAID, they were supporting farmers to adopt conservation practices to support farmers and help them to increase the yield to have enough food for their communities. But one farmer called Miondo, he was among beneficiaries of the project. He managed to double the yield during the project implementation and 2 years after. But after 4 years, project ended. The problem was the yield started declining, and he was still doing what an expert told him to do so, the agronomist of the project. Now, if we are in the shoes of this farmer, and if we're also in the shoes of USAID and IFAD who implemented this project, what could have been done on the project implementation and even in the project preparation to ensure that we didn't left this farmer with yield, but after a few days, after some months, after some years, the production started to decrease. It might not only be the yield, it can even be the soil health. It can be the income in general. So what can we do? This presentation today, or this session today, will center on this. We are going to see how at least can we map stakeholders. We get to know who are the stakeholders in the coming slides, and understand where there are laws in the conservation of culture projects, not only to be like a beneficiaries, but what are their key laws, and how can we consider what they need. So to do this, we are going to build on impact value chain to systematically understand and link how the project resources, the project implementer use, and the beneficiaries they have, to make a desirable social, economical, and environmental outcome. So I hope at the end of this session, we'll be able to understand how we can implement conservation agriculture-oriented projects in sustainable way, tracking measurable progresses, and maximizing community engagement as the way forward. Now, maybe some of you, you have understood or you have seen conservation agriculture, or it's a new term for you. Conservation agriculture, it's a broad approach that was adopted by FAO, but it started in US back in 1930s, where they were trying to help farmers to breed the soil health and increase the yield. So this agronomical or these agriculture practices, it is built on three technical principles or pillars, which is minimum soil disturbance, like how can you do farming without disturbing the soil. Again, it's also built on permanent soil cover and crop diversification. So it is built on these three principles, and conservation agriculture, it falls under climate smart agriculture. So the project you are implementing, if it's conservation agriculture, it has also to, if you want to make it sustainable, it has to meet with 4 pillars of sustainability adopted by UNESCO back in 2010, which is environmental, social, economic, and cultural, or a governance. Many projects, when we are working on them, or when we see the NGOs or many organizations trying to solve the community problems, they focus on economic part. So we have a village there, the farmers, they have low yield. So we are going to support them. We are going to help them to bring irrigation. You are going to support them to understand and help them to know agriculture practices that they will help them to build the soil health and really to increase the production. But we tend to forget, if we don't include these farmers or these beneficiaries in preparation of the projects, to understand what they really need. They don't need only to increase the yield. Maybe they need mindset shift. They need to understand, why are we doing this? So that's why cultural or governance also comes in when we talk about sustainability. It's not about financial, it's not about economic, it's not about the environment safe, but it's also about the mindset shift of the people, or the beneficiaries of the project. Now, we can ask ourselves, or we can think of, how can conservation agriculture align with these UNESCO framework principles of sustainability? So they are very linked, because conservation agriculture principle number 1, it's about how we minimize soil disturbance by adopting minimum tillage or zero tillage wherever possible, because it depends on the area where you are implementing. And mainly when we come to sub-Saharan Africa, minimum tillage is more adoptable. But if you go to countries with a plain lands, like in US, Sometimes zero tillage is not possible. They do minimum tillage. What it helps to minimize soil erosion, which is a great threat to our soil. It enhances soil biodiversity and optimize water usage. We know water is critical importance input when for our crops or for animals on the farm. So this this pillar of environmental pillar, it has to bring together how minimized soil erosion, how enhanced soil biodiversity, how optimized water usage lead to environmental sustainability. So you don't only do this to last for 2 years or to last for 3 years. You want to last it forever. You want to make a long-term impact. When you go to social pillar, the society, it changes. It's dynamic. And when the society is dynamic, you have also to put in place the procedures, the framework that will support your projects over a period of time. So let's give an example. Many people from Rwanda, you know, the project called NAICO, National Cooperative. It is one of the successful conservation projects, I would say, that have been put in place and has been successful. But when you look on how the project is running today, it's so inspirational. The farmers today, they have took their own responsibility to own the cooperative, to form and own the cooperative. They now take over of the activities from how do they get inputs, how do they find the market, and how do they even negotiate on the market. And then they have diversified their portfolio, I would say, not only to produce the products, they do value addition. They are now in seed business. They do produce, they produce and sell the seeds. And this is because they have already understood why the project is there. It's there to make transformation for them. It's not there to take the land. But again, when you look back, when the project started, some farmers were afraid. Okay, they are training us to move from here to go to live in the village. We left our soil. They are consolidating it together. How are you going to survive? So this is how, when you engage the community, when you engage the beneficiaries, you tell them, like, this is your project and you have to take part in it. So it strengthens their participation. And today, some farmers, they are no longer only farmers, they are business people. So they are doing business. If you take a visit there, the community even itself, it has developed. You can find gas fuel, you can find a lot of basic needs. They are being able to afford themselves from there because they understood, they took the ownership of the project. Again, it's all about economic viability and economic benefit. So if farmers, they now have good yield, I would say they are the one with high maize and soybeans yield per hectare in Rwanda. If you consider the small scale farmers average, now it's, I think from the last survey of agriculture from Rwanda National Institute of Statistics, the average yield of maize for Rwandans farmers, it was around 1.2 metric tons. But if you go to NAICO farmers, it's above 6 tons. So you can see the difference because they understood and they have taken the ownership. So the productivity is there, the profit is being made, they are reducing the inputs, they have adopted minimum tillage, they now no longer need to do 3 times mulching or 3 times weeding or putting much of the pesticides. So this is how it comes. And again, when we are implementing projects, we tend to call ourselves experts, or we come up with technical expertise from science, and we forgot a local wisdom. If you forgot local wisdom and you don't integrate into the projects, the farmers, many of them, they will be hesitant to adopt what you're trying to tell them. If you go to different parts of Africa, one of the systems that also has been being implemented, it's called ZIPIT system, where farmers, they drag like a small part of the soil to allow in line season. So the water is collected and it gets discharged on the crops over time. So if maybe someone came into Senegal and he told people, okay, now we want you to adopt zero tillage, and you forgot their knowledge on ZIPIT, yes, you will do it, but after 3 years, they will no longer be interested. But if you go there, you understand the way they can conserve their soil is to use ZIPIT, and you try to integrate your knowledge or your project objectives, and you customize it in the way from their local experience, from their local knowledge, it will support and it will help them to take the ownership. I believe farmers in every corner, or the beneficiaries of the project in every corner, they already have knowledge. But what they need is just like amplification. You know, when for the musicians, when after decoding, they do amplification, they do adjustment of their voices so that when you listen to the music, you say, wow, this is Lady Gaga, this is Bruce Melody. But if you go to the recording room, it will be a different story. But as they do amplification, we get to hear the very nice music. It's the same to the project expertise. So you don't only copy and apply the knowledge from science. You go with beneficiaries, you co-design. You already have a design of the project, but you co-design with them according to their skills, according to their knowledges. So that's how you support farmers, or you support the beneficiaries, building on their expertise, building on their knowledges, to make sure that the project will be successful and it will take a long period of time to last. So in conservation agriculture, it always goes with the sustainability when you consider the participation of the farmer, or participation of those who are intended to make an impact. Now, as I mentioned, agriculture in general, and specifically conservation agriculture, it's knowledge intensive, and knowledge changes over time. So they have their own indigenous knowledge, but also science is always evolving. Then if you want to adopt these conservation agriculture practices, you have also to understand the mindset of the farmers, and you help them to adopt those practices in their own way, in their own understanding, because you don't only bring the technical expertise to them. So you have to know what they need. If you bring a tractor to farmer, that you're telling them, okay, this tractor, it is designed in the way it does minimum tillage for them, and you don't consider how they normally do minimum tillage, maybe using their hose. So many of them, they not adopt. And even if they adopt, they will not take the ownership. If they don't adopt, that means if they don't have acceptance of the knowledge, it will be foreseen very, very short period of time. That's why we need to install the technical expertise we have with their local understanding. So we do what you call mindset shift. We allow them to work, and to do this mainly, there is another framework developed by FAO called Farmer Field School. So you start with like the big figure farmers, the farmers who already have like I could say like a leadership in themselves, and they are like a role models. So if they apply the practices and their neighbors, they see, okay, this is performing well. On their own, they will have this tendency to apply, okay, my neighbor tried it, it worked. I should try this too, and it will work. We always need to consider the local expertise, because if you're not taking into consideration, our projects cannot last long. It may finish, you have project of 5 years, yes, it will be successful, the yield will increase, but after 4 years, like Miando, it will be the same case. We have to allow them to be a key actors and co-creator and co-definer of the project we are doing. Now, if we now understood very well, okay, we know integrating farmers or local knowledge or integrating the local expertise is a key. Then farmers, they are not the only one to implement the projects. If you don't have willingness of the local leaders, if you don't have collaboration from existing NGOs or other local organizations, it will not work. So here comes in what we do call a stakeholder mapping. And when we talk about stakeholder, it's a person. It can be a person, it can be a group, organization, or just a government. It depends on the context, who influence or can affect the project outcomes. So the stakeholders, they can be internal within the projects. We have, if you have a project, you already have experts, you have ME, monitoring and evaluation officer of the projects. So those are the internal stakeholders. But also you can have external stakeholders who are the mainly or the farmers maybe are going to work with. Then in conservation agriculture project, mainly we have direct beneficiaries who are farmers. And those farmers, some of them, they are female, they are male, they are small farmers, they are large farmers, maybe they are cooperative, maybe they are a local association. So they have different understanding. You can say, okay, I have this conservation agriculture project. I'm going to implement it in Kilehe. And I'm mainly targeting small-scale farmers. But if you go there, you will find maybe there is the land owned by the community. It belongs to the community, or it belongs to the one family, and it's not divided. Then when you consider, okay, this land is for this farmer, but you didn't consider the farmer, the real farmer who are operating on that soil, he doesn't have enough right or full right to decide what to grow in this or what to do on this farm. You forgot he or she has a family or she has an association that determine or decide what can be done on this soil. That means you have also to consider the family. You have to consider that association rather than only choosing a farmer as a project beneficiaries. We have also private sectors. Maybe they can be the suppliers of seeds. They can be local buyers. They can be financial institutions that they will find, they will give money to the project, or they will make a follow-up after you left. We have public institutions like Ministry of Agriculture, depending on the region, local government, like agronomists of the district, of the sector, of the community. We have research institutions that are collaborating to ensure the project is being implemented. And you have also project implementers. They can be NGOs, they can be project manager, they can be trainers or extension workers. So all of them, you have to take them into consideration. Now, I mentioned they have different influence and also they have different impact. So then how do I know who to reach out to in this period of time on this context. That's when comes in what we call this, we have this framework. So it's elaborate, or it shows how can I be able to place or to organize the stakeholders according to their power of influence and to the level of interest in the project. They may have influence, but their interest is very low. Or they may have interest, but influence is very low. Let's take an example of the project to support farmers on adopting minimum tillage. So we have farmers. Farmers, they have influence in the project because they will be the one to decide where they gave a land to do demonstration. Even their level of interest is very high because they are direct beneficiaries. They want to see the changes in their life. So in this case, because they have high influence and they have high interest, we place them in the upper right corner. You manage them closely because a small neglect for them or fail to plan on their influence, it will lead to project failures. We have also local leaders. They have very high influence to the farmers or the cooperative. If they are farmers and they are working in the cooperative and your project is mainly intended to the cooperative, to the farmers in the cooperative, so the cooperative has high influence on the farmer. But if there is no direct profit, their interest will be low. Now you have to meet their needs because the cooperative, they have rules and regulations to abide to every farmer. So to work with that farmer, you have to go to the cooperative and understand what regulations or what conditions they have to meet to be the beneficiaries of the projects. That means we place them in the left upper corner. Now, if you have a farmer, if we have a family that is composed of 5 people, have a woman as head of the family. He's the one who take care of the land, and she has a husband, but he doesn't do a farming. But whatever going to be done on the farm, he has to decide. He has an influence, but the interest may be low. Now, we don't also regret that husband. We have also to bring him into the consideration. So we keep them into account. The influence is low, the interest is low, but in other way around, he will have an influence on the success of the project. So other stakeholders that we have, they have high interest, but they have low influence. We keep them also on this side of low corner of the light. And this one, it doesn't be applied to every project. It depends on the project itself and where it is going to be implemented. So in the project, you don't do copy and paste. You do co-design, as I mentioned, and you co-collaborate with the farmers, or you co-collaborate with every stakeholders according to their level of influence and their level of need. Then if you have a well-mapped stakeholder, that every group is considered and it is taken into consideration according to their influence and interest, you need to prioritize the need of direct beneficiaries. Though in this case, they are farmers, because any single mistake for them or for the project owner or the project implementer, it will lead to the failure of the project. He can succeed, produce may increase, but do they still hold, or do they still believe in continue to do minimum tillage you have trained them on? if they didn't take the true ownership? That's the question to ponder on. Now, if I ask maybe one of you, or if we ask ourselves, whenever we look on the project outcomes, it's mainly we are going to increase the yield of the farmer, the income is going to increase, they will be able to get the school fees for their kids. So here we mainly we are focusing on commercial value chain, or we are focusing on the tangible economic part. But we forgot, or we tend not to consider an impact value chain. So impact value chain is what? It's a framework that prioritize or take consideration into the inputs you are putting in the project, the activity you're going to do, the short output you're going to get, the outcome, and in the long run, the impact. So many projects, when you look on them, the priority is commercial value. But in invisible terms, in money, and increased yield. But again, do we consider, or do we consider the mindset shift of them? If we consider them, it will last longer. It will be sustainable. So now we are going to see how we link their influence, we link the inputs we have, or we link the objectives into the real or action of the project. So we will use what we call 5-step logical model, or IVC. It was developed by USAID. That shows how the project resources can create or can build to give or to get or to make a long-lasting impact in the community. That means a sustainable impact. So to make sure that you have the community, or you have the project beneficiaries into your projects, you need to know also how do you approach them? How do you engage them in the projects? Because the way I'm going to engage with a farmer, it will be the way different, the way we engage with local readers. It will be a different the way you engage with NGOs. It will be different way with financial banks. Let's say SACCO in Rwanda. If a farmers now, okay, they have seen that the yield is improving. Now they want to do value addition, but they need money. They need to reach out to Umurenge SACCO. So how do I consider that Umurenge SACCO? This is how we come up with community engagement approach. There are different approaches depending on the context or depending on the project. But here, the main one that are being used for the projects related to conservation, they are what we call stakeholder mapping and power interest. So here you ensure everyone is included. You don't only make a list of the direct beneficiaries of the project, but you also make sure that you have a list of everyone who could make project successful or who could make project fail, because you also have to consider them. After that, you can also use co-design and co-management, where you let the beneficiaries lead the planning. So you give them the power, you give them the capacity to do it themselves. We go back to the example we saw of NICO, National Cooperative. As they now have their full ownership, it's because they have been involved in developing the projects. So you didn't go, the Buffett Foundation didn't go and said, okay, we are going to bring you a tractor, we are going to move you from here and we take you there. But they took into consideration how they want things to be done. You can also use the local champions and peer-to-peer running. In this case, we can give an example of farmer field school, and also you do capacity building and thyroid training, because each project is identical in the way it is going to impact the community, in the way it is going to be implemented, and the location where the implementation will happen. Now, so I mentioned about impact value chain, not commercial value chain we are familiar with, because commercial value chain, it's this, okay, I have this input, we have 50 million running flanks, we are going to invest in this project to support farmers to adopt conservation agriculture, and we hope to see 30% increase in yield. That's it. Is it enough? Maybe yes, but you're not last. So then to make sure that the project has long-lasting impact, you consider 5 steps for each input you're going to put in the project, for the activity going to be done, the output, the outcome, and impact. So the inputs, it's what we need to invest. It can be a human resource, it can be financial resources, and it can be also that local knowledge we were talking about, because it's a great input. Then if the inputs, if the inputs you are implementing or you are giving to the farmers or you are trying to put in place when you're implementing the project, it has to meet with the community needs, not only economically to increase the yield, but economically, socially, and environmentally. Then the activity, each activity you mention, you have to ensure that everyone is involved. Like at each stage, the projects, many projects, they have like stages or they have like a phases. So each phase, you have different stakeholders, and you have to make sure that you collaborate with them according to how you map them, their power of influence and their power of interest. Then this will help you to get output from each activity and from which inputs, which is very specific to the stakeholders. So the impact now, I would say we have 2 impacts. One is short, which is outcome. Okay, project has been increased, like the farmer have seen at the beginning. But also, it can be in terms of social. Maybe people now, they're being able to work in the cooperatives. They can be able to send their children to school. Then the impact is a big picture. After 10 years, if someone came in the region where you have implemented your projects, it's what he will see as an impact. Yes, yield has been increased. The soil health has improved. The community has grown. The mindset has changed. The farmers, they are no longer only rely on the primary production. They have diversified their source of income. They are now doing added value. So that's the impact. So this is like a guiding framework that can help any project implementer in conservation to make sure that it's going to make a long-lasting impact. You consider the inputs, you consider the activities, and to do this, it's mainly you start with activities, because once you know activity, okay, I'm going to give the training to farmers, that's you know what you will need, and you get expectations of the farmers. So that's an output. After getting their expectations, you also consider them, you do replanning, you plan again with them, you co-design with them, and if you do this in this way, you will be able to create a long-lasting impact for the community and for the implementer of the project too. Because if the project is successful, that's achievement. But if it fails after a few years later, I don't think it will be a good thing. Now, you have implemented the project using this framework of impact value chain. You have considered the inputs you're going to use, the activities you are trying to come up with from the objective of the project. You have seen the output and long-term impact. Now, how do you check if the impact you've made are sustainable? So you do this using KPIs, key performance indicators, and KVIs, key value performance. So you not only get the values, like in terms of money on the yield, but also you understand or you evaluate how farmers has changed. Let's say if you have seen the output, the farmers, you train it, they have understood well the concept, but the adoption was 10%. So you know, okay, you know where the activity was to train farmers. This is an example. So you have a project, you want to train farmers, you train them, 50 of them, 10% adopted what you have trained them on. And the input was just to train them how to use the conservation agriculture when they are planting, like how to use the minimum tillage when they are planting the seed. Now, the impact is not just, okay, they have adopted how to do this, how to cultivate and seed their plants using minimum tillage. Then you also look on over time, how did it contributed to the poverty reduction example, gender equality, or the mindset shift in general. So you identify them over time. And to do this, you don't do it at the end of the project. So you do it at the beginning when you're doing stakeholder mapping, so that at each stage, at each phase, you will be able to check the progress. To customize it well or to understand it well in a conservation agriculture context, output will be number of the. You remember the activity you have up? It was to train farmers. So the output is number of farmers you have trained. The area may be under conservation agriculture because you trained 100 farmers, but only 20% of them they have adopted it. So you count the number of hectares, or you measure the number of hectares, and you count the number of seeds or the number of kgs you give to the farmers. Now the output will be an increase in percentage of water retention. You see? So sorry, the outcome. The output, it's just the farmers you trained, but the outcome, after 2 years, if you come with the soil still very dry after harvesting, no. The now soil is covered because after harvesting, they left the stroke on the soil and the soil is covered. So the water retention increased. There was a reduction in the cost of inputs, maybe for the next season, because they will not need to do weeding again. And they have also increased the decision-making of women farmers, if you were targeting women farmers. Now, the overall impact in this case will be the household income has increased, yes. Food security index change has been improving. And you're not only looking on this, but also the carbon emission has reduced because maybe they are no longer use tractors that emit high carbon dioxide, or they are no longer doing burning. So here you can see we have all of the impact together. We have economy, we have social, and we have also environmental. So all of them, they are combined together. So whenever you're going to implement conservation agriculture projects, you have to remember this. What are the inputs am I going to use? What activities will I involve farmers with or other stakeholders? What are my intended outcomes and long-term impact? And as we wrap up this session, so it's always good to consider the community, the farmers, to make them the ownership of the project, not the implementer. So to do this, you make a shift from focusing on output. Just this year, yield has increased, but also you focus on outcome. So what is the progress of yield change over 5 years to come? You stop to count on number of training sessions you gave, but you measure the behavior and technical competencies. As you mentioned, they have already knowledge, but how do they try to mix up or to adopt the new technology you gave to them, the new technical expertise you gave them, and try to merge them together with their local knowledges? Now, it's better to prioritize who you engage according to their influence and to the level of their interest. This will help to create a long-term project. So your long-term project goal is to engage them from the beginning to the end, and you engage everyone according to their power and influence and their level of interest. So this will help you to list or to get your intended impacts. Yes, income has increased. Good. Resilience of the soil for soil degradation or for soil erosion has improved. Sharp. That's good. The community needs is always the highest. So you identify them through mapping and you consider them to be the priority instead of prioritizing the project's outcomes or the project goals. So, and community engagement, it's not just a checklist, an item. It's not just, okay, you have written them in the paper or you check them, but it's a driver to resilience, and it's necessary for all 4 pillars of sustainable agriculture you have seen. So thank you so much. I will welcome questions if you have some questions or inputs.
Thank you so much, Eric. I think this was a very interesting, insightful discussion. From Miondo's story, I think that's your first slide. You talked about Miondo's story and how he's from Malawi. A project came in and was supporting community-based agricultural innovations and practices. But then after 4 years, when the funders left, they struggled to keep up with the work. I think it was a full circle as you ended with impact value chain and explaining when a project is run well, how water retention increases, reduced cost, household income increases, and everything. I think it was a full circle from what Miondo faced, but then what he should have faced if the project was designed in a proper manner. I'm going to welcome questions. If you have a question, you can please raise your virtual hand. I see Gustav raised his virtual hand. I'm going to welcome him, and then if you also have questions, the rest of the audience, you can either type it into the chat box or raise your virtual hand, and I'll welcome you. Gustav, I welcome you. And
Hey,
yeah,
thank you for that. A quick question. Yeah, first of all, congratulations. You're in South Africa. We struggle to even make 1 ton a hectare in communal areas on average. So to get to 6 tons a hectare, we can sure learn from you guys. But my question will be in terms of conservation, agriculture, regenerative. There's this principle that no till or minimal till, but in our soils, compaction. So compaction and hard setting, even if you do rip or disc or add organic material into the soil, if it's not incorporated at depth, the soil tends to hard set. Even in some soils, or duplex soils, sandy soils mixed with clay soils, they make a crust on top. So how did you guys overcome that challenge? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. Yes, I agree with you. Soil compactness when you're implementing conservation agriculture can be a problem. But again, it requires a proper machines to use or proper equipment to use. So there are tractors that are well designed for conservation agriculture practices. So if we go to the soil profile, we know that we have 40 centimeters rhizosphere, or the main area where the roots of the crops mainly grow for normal crops. And these tractors, they have an implement that can reach in that depth of the soil. So it helps to reduce the compactness. I'm not sure if you get it very right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think, well, in terms of soil compaction, just like he mentioned, Eric, um, this what you need to use in terms of the materials, tractors, even the hose for small scale farmers, it all depends with your soil profile. And in terms of the achievement of NICO from 1 metric tons per hectare to 6 metric tons per hectare. There's someone we hosted, I think it was in March on ShareScreen Africa. He's called Alex Lambert. He has a prominent role in NICO, which is the cooperative that achieved all that. So also welcome him again, because I feel like the case study that was mentioned can be well elaborated by him. He's a South African, by the way, so it would be very easy to have that conversation with you and the rest of the audience. So yes, we were going to invite him again, and hopefully by 10th of November for the next Cultivate Africa event, we will welcome him. So if anyone also has a question, I see there's no question. I also use this privilege to ask my question, and maybe for the rest of the audience, you can be typing your question or even raising your virtual hands. My question is, I think while mapping the stakeholders, be it the farmers or any other community groups, you may either face an inclusion error or you can face an exclusion error, because you might include some stakeholders that are not supposed to be included, or you can exclude stakeholders that are supposed to be included. So my question is, while doing your stakeholder mapping, what's your risk analysis like for you to prevent yourself from excluding someone who was meant to be included or include someone who was meant to be excluded?
Okay, thank you so much for the interesting question. Yes, it may happen, and there's high probability that you can include the stakeholders who were not supposed to be included, or the exclude ones who were supposed to be included. So, but when you're doing this engagement with them, or when you're doing mapping of them, you already have objectives of the projects, and you already have a project that is well designed. So what you do, you start to align with the outcomes of your mapping, not outcome of the project, outcomes of your mapping. okay, I have seen this stakeholder, they have this influence and they have this interest. If they have this influence and they have this interest, does it align with normal objectives of the project, the one you have? If it aligns, that's fine. If it doesn't align, so you co-design with them. You either say, okay, this one, the influence will be low. So if the influence is low, now our expectations from what we needed or what we intended to this farmer or to this stakeholder is going to be minimal. But if the influence again is high or the interest is high, and from your previous design of the projects, you see you didn't give them a priority, that's how you come up with a new design. Because you have co-designed with them. So you are basing on their interest or you are basing on their needs. Now, to ensure the inclusion, so you, after mapping, you come back with the project objectives and you do double verification. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you answered my question, and I see Benitus has a question. If he can unmute himself and ask the question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Robert. I'm Bentus, the student from Rika, and from the slides of Mr. Eric, there is a good thing that is said of the local knowledge of the community, that whenever one wants to engage the community in CA adoption, also he has to engage them from the knowledge that they have. So I got a question of curiosity, because most of the time the smallholder farmers use the crop residues as the livestock feeds. So how would the CA project implementer approach this and ensure that the crop residues are used as the mulch instead of these livestock feeds? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Bentus, for your question. Yes, this is a really big problem, mainly when you're trying to implement the project on minimum tillage and teaching farmers to leave their residues on the farm while they have to feed their animals. So we have seen that one of the intended outcomes of the project in conservation should be also be about mindset shift and value added. So if they are getting high produce of maize, for the people who did animal production, who have basics on feed of animals, maize and corn, maize or corn, depending on the context, and soybeans, they consist around 80% of the feed for the animals. Now, if a farmer is able to increase the yield, so he will no longer need to wait or to take the leftovers to feed the animal, but he will also have that knowledge and that courage to make the animal feed from the increased yield, as he now have a high amount of the yield beyond what he needs at or she needs at family level.
Thank you, Eric. I think yes, the reaction from Benitus tells me that he got answered. We have a hand from Mabanot Tresor. If you can unmute yourself and ask.
Thank you very much. I had a question for Eric regarding the topic. Okay, when you mentioned about conservation agriculture and sustainable agriculture, when it comes to farmers, it tend to be somehow controversial because they are not technical guys like us who studied agriculture in one or another. So they can't actually tell the difference or tell the benefit of soil health rather than the yield and the productivity, because that's what they aim for. So I wanted to ask about how like these training projects or processes can try to balance between the trade-offs of traditional agricultural, conventional agriculture, and these new trainings and even new ideas that are being brought up in those conservation practices that they are teaching to the farmers. How can those projects try to manage those trade-offs and tell it to the farmer? Because in one way or another, when you integrate conservation agriculture, you might see the cost might increase and even the yields might go down in the first years, but in later years you can see the benefits in terms of sustainability parts, as you mentioned within your presentation. Then how can those projects try to manage to manage those trade-off and to explain it to a farmer in a way that they can try to understand?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Trazol. Yes, farmers, most of the time, we say they don't have knowledge, and we bring new expertise or bring new technologies, but we tend to forget that they already have knowledge. So instead of bridging the gap or try to build on what they already know, we intend to bring new things to them. And psychologically, humans, we resist to the changes. That's our native psychology. We tend to resist to changes unless we see direct impact. So this is the reason why we have to build on what they already know. So you go there, you understand what they know and why are doing this. If the way they are doing farming, for us, if you are project implementers, we say it is wrong, but actually for them, it's right. And what you are going to do in project implementation, if we didn't consider their own indigenous or local knowledge, we say they are doing wrong things. So that's where the collision happened, and the project might not be successful. Then that's why this project mapping or stakeholder mapping is the key, because you go there, you understand how they do things. And if you understand well how they do things, now you try to co-create with them, you redesign the project with them, and you even redesign, if you have already training material intended to the new technology or to the new expertise you want to deliver to them. So you have to customize it back to the way they normally do things. This is the answer I could give to you. It's always about bridge the gap with the knowledge they have with what you're trying to bring in. Don't just bring what you already know, the technology you know, and try to force them to adopt. Because even if they adopt, it will not last.
I think you laid it out very, very well that unless, first of all, from your presentation, you said something that's stuck with me, something that has to do with first knowing the local wisdom, what farmers has been doing for I don't know, 30, 50 years before you come in. And as you know that local wisdom, then you get to integrate what you call the scientific principles and methodologies on how you do your conservation agriculture or regenerative agriculture. And that blend is what helps farmers improve. Otherwise, if you come in and try to impose on them what, first of all, it's their land, it's not your land. So there's really nothing you're going to do about it if they don't adopt. The only issue you're going to face is that the environment is going to continue to be harmed. But I think there are so many principles we can learn from that local wisdom in terms of how they have been protecting their land. And as you integrate what you call the scientific principles, then you get to have a good blend that solves all the problem. Yeah, I think I'm not seeing any other questions from the audience. I'm not sure if anyone else has a question or intervention. We'll also like to invite not only questions but also some um, uh, interventions and supplements on what Eric just said. I see Duncan just unmuted.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Eric, for the nice presentation. And I am Duncan. I come from Kenya, Masai Mara. And I want to ask a question on the part of the stakeholders, especially when we talk of stakeholders with high interest, low attitudes, and maybe low influence. We have other stakeholders with interest, positive attitudes, and low influence. And when you come up with a project, sometimes you find the stakeholders with high interest and high attitudes are not capable to have influence in terms of finance or in terms of how they control the projects. And maybe you now want to integrate agriculture and conservation, especially in a case of in situ conservation, where you come up with agriculture at the same time you have a protected area. So how can you how can you incorporate the idea of stakeholders which with low influence, high positive interest, positive attitudes? How do you incorporate those kinds of stakeholders?
Okay, thank you so much, Duncan, for joining us from Kenya, and for the question. Yes, some of the beneficiaries, they may have high interest, but their influence is not enough. But actually, what you do, basically, you have to work with them, and you consider, when you are doing mapping, you understand very well their needs. Even if they have interest, that means they have hope of gaining something from your project. If they have a hope of what they want to gain from the project, now during your mapping, you discuss with them, and if you understood well their needs, you come back, you integrate their needs into the activities you will be doing. Their influence might be low, yes, and this is usually happens because, let's say, if you are implementing a C2 conservation, as you mentioned, in your case, so you have poachers who always hunt for the animals from the forest, but you want to conserve them. So they don't have interest, actually. They don't have interest, but their impact on the project will be high. Now, what you do, you go and have discussion with them. You understand, why do they do that? And what do they think of they will be doing if they stop poaching? You see, then you understand, okay, we are doing this because we don't have other alternative option to get our basic need. Now you go back to your project, you do adjustment. If it was only just to collect the animals from the forest and you keep them, so now you also need to include maybe beehive keeping or beekeeping projects to support those poachers who are doing that activity, at least to have their alternative source of income. So if you'll be able to convince them, and if you'll be able to prove them that they have another source of income, they will not go back to the forest.
I think you are correct,
Okay.
and you have answered my question well. And I think, as you said, maybe the most of the stakeholders with low interest, and they have high influence in terms of their contribution to the conservation, are the ones sometimes that make project to collapse or not to succeed. So, as you said, stakeholders engagement is very important aspect as you are setting up your project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Duncan. There's a question from Kanyile Pilenle. Hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. If they can unmute themselves and ask the question.
Greetings to everyone. My name is Bilentle Kanyida and I'm a student in Free State. So I have a question. How does conservation agriculture impact soil organic matter content in farming systems?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Eric, we can hear you.
Okay, so your question is about how conservation agriculture impacts soil organic content in the farming system. Yes, as we have seen from the beginning, we have seen that conservation agriculture mainly has three principles. That is ensuring that your soil is always covered, you are doing minimum disturbance of the soil, and you have diversity in the farm. Taking an example of the principle number one of minimum soil disturbance, the way the soil structure, the way it is designed naturally, it has a porous areas where the water can flow in, and we have a big number of small organisms like worms that we usually call soil engineers because of the work they do. So now, if you did minimum tillage, means you are not disturbing those microorganisms in the soil. Now, after harvesting, you left your crop cover in the soil, your stocks. You don't take them to animals or you don't burn them. Now, they are going to cover the soil. If they cover the soil, the humidity will be favorable to those microorganisms, to those worms, to start to digest and break down the leftovers you left on the soil. After a few months, they will be converted into soil organic matter in terms of nitrogen and carbon. So now, after a few months and after 1 year, 2 years, the soil organic matter will increase because you did minimum tillage. That means you didn't disturb too much the soil system, mainly these soil engineers, worms, and the other small insects that are beneficial to the soil. So they start to do their job, that is degradation or just breaking down the organic matter you left there at the stock, and they will turn into absorbable nitrogen and carbon, mainly in nitrate format.
Kanyide, are you answered?
Yes, I'm answered. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Welcome.
I think your question took us all back into the college days. Yeah, I hope I'm not I cannot see if there's any other question. Benito's asked another question. Is it a question or if you can unmute yourself and
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening again. So when Mr. Eric was saying about bridging the gap between conventional tillage and conservation agriculture, I got a simple idea that I would like to ask if to be a good idea or a good technique to increase this rate of adoption to CA. Maybe if we use adoption reward technique where the farmers who adopt to CA would be given some of the support, for example, the help in getting the inputs or some token of appreciation. Just would this be a good technique to use to increase this rate of adoption?
Yes, Benitus, you're right. As I mentioned, in human nature, in our own brain, the way we perceive things or the way we do things, it will depend on the interest or the benefit we want to get from. So it's either you're doing the thing because of the benefit you want to get or because you want to avoid punishment. So if you have a system to appreciate or to appraise those who are performing well, it will be a good idea. And it's not only for those who are performing well, but it's also good because you are giving encouragement to others. You are giving encouragement to other farmers. I have seen one example in Rwanda. Coffee farmers, there were time when they visit your farm, if they have seen that you matched well your coffee farm and there is no other crops, like you don't have plantains in there, so they gave you incentive of bicycle to carry your produce from the farm to the collection site or to the washing station without carrying it on your own head. So you see, it's just a place for the farmer who did well, but it's also encouragement for other farmers because next time, next season, they will do the same way you did to get the same price. Yes, it's a good, I would say it's a good methodology. It's a good way to also support the beneficiaries of the projects to take the ownership and take the responsibility.
Yeah, I also think it's a great initiative that can be put in place. But to me, the overall goal is for the communities to understand that they need to appraise the people that are bringing them their solutions. They need to reach a certain level of understanding where they feel like they not necessarily owe the people that brought their solutions to them, but appreciate them instead of, like, in our case, if Eric is the one bringing the solutions to the communities, he should not be in a position where he feels like he needs to appraise the community. The goal should be for the community to understand what Eric is trying to achieve. And instead of Eric appraising them, the community should be appraising Eric. To me, that's the overall goal. That's how it should be. But yes, that's a great initiative to start with, because if one is appraised and everyone else see maybe he got appraised from the project leaders, but also his farm achieves certain level of productivity, then everyone is going to adapt the same techniques. Yes, I think we are towards the end of our session tonight. I hope I'm not denying anyone a chance to ask a question or provide some inputs. All right, so I would like to thank you all for being here tonight. This should be becoming your home where you come and learn and get to discuss more about whether you call it conservation agriculture, whether you call it regenerative agriculture. It should be basically soil-friendly farming, because we are doing all this to facilitate our soil to generate more and to sustain ourselves and the future generations. So that's the end goal. And I thank you for being here. This, for a reminder, it happens twice a month, so you can expect the same event, different speaker, different topic. On 10th of November, we expect to see every one of you. You can tell your friend can tell another friend to come here and learn and contribute towards sustainable farming, basically. So thank you all for being here. I thank Eric for being our speaker tonight. You were really inspiring and insightful. Thank you for everyone who asked the question and provided the inputs. We hope to see you again on 10th of November and see you then. Thank you. Thank you so much.